Welcome to Investors Hangout, brought to you by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. Are 15 funds better than 5 or 5 better than 15? Is higher number detrimental or good for your growth? Should you be cutting the flab and creating a lean portfolio that delivers? Well, all these questions will be answered by the CEO of Value Research, Dhirendra Kumar. Dhirendra, we welcome you.
Thank you.
The first question forms the genesis from where this problem starts. Why do people have too many funds?
Oh, new funds are launched with great fanfare. And then existing open-end funds, sometimes some fund does well and investors think that, they need to add to it. Something else is doing well. Investors get quite attracted by, recent past performance, something which has done very well. Everybody wants to have a small part of it. So, variety of reason. The hype around new funds, and normally these things happen when the market is doing well, something which has done very well in recent past. It will be, sold by a large sales force, which is incentivized to do it. People really buy into research, and if the fund which you are investing in has not done as well, you think you have missed out on something. So you end up being a collector rather than being an investor, and it is not a concerted thing. So at many times I find that people have very inappropriate fund and a wide variety of fund, and then it becomes unmanageable. There are numerous, so primarily people get attracted by the hype and become a collector than remaining an investor.
And also the new fund offer that they have.
Primarily new fund offers.
Okay. And even the friends come and says, okay, you must buy.
This is this is an offer.
Yes.
Will I miss out on something? So
Okay. So my question is that what's wrong in having too many funds?
The couple of things. One is that one should be guided by one's goal. So the appropriateness of a fund is very important, not something which is an offer. Then lack of simplicity. When you have too many funds, lack of simplicity, lack of focus. So what happens is when something is not doing well, you don't worry about it because you don't have much interest there. So lack of interest. So I think one should look at why you buy a fund. You buy a fund to gain diversification, professional management, and appropriateness is the important thing, not what is hot selling right now or what looks attractive right now. And that goal is met with far simpler, fewer things. Once you do that, be at it. I think the critical component of an investor's goals being achieved is being in a concerted way on a plan with the appropriate vehicle and not getting distracted. It violates these rules. Lack of simplicity, having the focus, being interested.
Okay, lack of simplicity means lack of monitoring?
No, you don't have a plan.
Okay.
When you know that these funds are meant for my retirement, and I'm at these 3 funds, and I'm investing regularly, and I'll be reviewing it every 2 years and make changes accordingly. When you have 15 of them, lack of interest. That I think is critical. When you have, assuming that you have 10 lakh rupees, and it is spread over 20 funds. When something is not doing well, you won't be bothered that a very small part of it is there. Once you have some meaningful interest, you'll better review it, look at it closely, take some action when it's needed. Otherwise, it just drifts. And I think the other crucial thing which I would like, it's simply uneconomical, because most investors buy mutual fund for mutual funds, the dominance of actively managed fund, where you are effectively hiring a fund manager to manage your money. And when you are hiring a fund manager to manage your money, by having these too many funds, which by the very, by the design of, law of averages, some will do exceptionally well. A good number will be average and a small number will be poor. And you end up being average. And when you end up being average and you are actually paying for beating the average, might as well go with an index fund. Why go for an actively managed fund which costs you so much? A regular plan will cost you 2.5% or 1.5% or 1.75% for other plans. If you want to, for your goals, go for a select set, and that works for you.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the investors should trim the portfolio of 15 or 20 funds. They must do that.
Yeah, they must do that, and and it's good to have, being a collector than not being an investor in the first place. But it is better to organize your portfolio so that, it is poised for achieving your goals. It is configured to, achieve your financial goals and desirable kind. Most investors, start with this drift. Something is on offer, you start investing. But, it's about time that after a while you should organize things so that it is configured to perform.
Okay, what are the two ways in which they should trim their portfolio?
Most investors also actually many a times don't ask why they're investing. And you don't need to. If you have surplus, you invest. But it will be useful, if you're able to ask one very simple question, that what is the tentative time frame? Is it less than 5 years or more than 5 years?
Okay.
That will be helpful. And if you think that you are unlikely to need this money for 5 years, you can assume risk, you can get organized, and it can all be a long-term portfolio. Depending on the time frame, you have been investing, depending on your experience, how long you have been investing all these years, and how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with the ups and downs of the market, choose the appropriate vehicle. I think, most investors' need will be fulfilled by a first timer, should be investing in an equity income fund or a balanced fund and be at it. Long-term investors who can, 5 years and more, they should be considering a balanced fund, 1 or 2, do your SIP. You have been through it, ups and downs, you are not very uncomfortable, be with multi-cap funds. Maybe you want superlative return, maybe allocate 30% of your money to one small cap or a mid-cap fund, that should be it. 2 or 3 funds will actually meet most investors' long-term need. 1 or 2 multi-cap or 1 or 2 balanced fund, and coupled with 1 or 2 supplementary more aggressive funds that will actually serve you better. And I think the difference between a great fund manager who does well over time and a large number of reasonably okay but average performers, it'll actually show with this, and you are not compromising on anything. You are not compromising on diversification. The problem of having the fifth fund is that you don't get anything meaningful.
Okay.
Most funds also have a lot of complementary position. If you look at the fund portfolio, you will find that the top 5-10 holdings will be common across many funds for a variety of reasons. One is that funds need liquidity, and thinking is not very different. Large funds must have, every portfolio is mounted on a foundation of large cap stocks. So from that standpoint, avoiding the complementary position, a lot of common things. Many people have this impression that if you have 15 funds, you are getting a very different array of things, 15 expertise. No, I think after the fifth fund, after the third or fourth fund, if you are having the similar kind of fund, similar category of fund, you will actually be just diversifying without deriving any meaningful value.
So while trimming the funds, this is what you have said, that they should have 4 or 5 funds. How should they further trim the fund if they want to retain something? Should they look at the ratings? Should they look at less than 5% of the portfolio value funds should be removed? Would you like to elaborate on that aspect?
Yeah, I would say that one should start with our rating is very useful. Many a times people get attracted to our ratings that 5-star fund is an investable fund. I think the starting point of our rating should be that it actually helps you weed out losers, and 1-star, 2-star funds are the avoidable ones because they have, at least over the last 3 years, they have not delivered superior risk. They have underperformed on the risk adjusted performance. It's a very simple quantitative measure of risk adjusted performance. I would like to explain what risk adjusted performance, which sounds like a jargon. It is a jargon. That you invest. Every investor has options to invest. The simplest one is going to a bank and making a deposit, and it costs nothing. You don't have to choose anything. You are guaranteed a certain return, no anxiety, nothing. So that is your risk-free return. What is a fund able to, and I'm not talking in any technical terms. Our risk-free assumption is that what is the deposit rate available to Indian consumers, Indian savers, in State Bank for a 45-day deposit, because that is your opportunity cost. If you do nothing, you earn that much. Has a fund been able to deliver that return on a month-on-month basis? And what is that? And also the other thing which actually this rating system factors is how often the fund falls. declines, because our reaction to decline is far more intense. We dislike losses more than we like gains. This is the primary thinking. So a fund gets penalized for falling more often, and these are two primary the basic element which is factored. And then within a category, we see that which has delivered, which has been more consistent, and which falls less often. They get higher ratings. So there is a possibility that a fund has delivered superior return, but it may not be a 5-star fund. And as a result of this, 1-star and 2-star turn out to be the avoidable universe. So that is the first filter. When scaling down your portfolio, once you are left with those, then choose which is the most experienced fund manager, how consistent it has been even in that, and choose the best of your universe. You don't necessarily need to, you don't necessarily need to overhaul the whole thing, sell everything and buy everything, unless you find that all your funds turn out to be 1-star and 2-star. Then might as well, it is time to actually make a fresh start.
Okay, and less than 5% of the portfolio value. Also, the funds with less than 5% of the portfolio value also needs to be.
Yeah, because I'm a strong believer that funds are not stocks. When you are buying a fund, you are effectively buying 30 stocks, 40 stocks at one go.
Correct.
So having a 5% position in a fund doesn't make sense, because every investor should be interested in what he's investing in. And when you have 5%, it does well, it doesn't have a meaningful impact on your portfolio. If it does poorly, then you are not interested. You think you just hang on to it because it is not meaningful. So have meaningful interest, so that you act when it doesn't do well, and when it performs, it has an impact, it benefits.
And they should and they could redeploy the money that they have in the selected well-performing.
Yes, I would say that look at your funds, knock the 1-star, 2-star, the good ones which you are left with. Choose even I would say that if your portfolio is large, maybe 4 equity fund, or 3 or 4 balanced fund, or 3 multi-cap fund and 1 mid-cap fund. 3-4 funds should make a bulk of your portfolio, and realize that money and try and be equitable, so that you have a fund does well. After all this hard work, it should have an impact.
So will there be any tax or cost implications while doing this?
Yes, there will be a cost, and there will be an impact of both, but it won't be very significant, because all the gains that you have on your mutual fund earned till January 31st, 2018, that is tax sheltered on all your equity funds. The gains thereafter, I don't think there will be too much gain thereafter. That will be taxable. So, but you have to make this change, do it, because the tax implication will be nominal. One important thing is that all your investment which are less than 1 year old, assuming that you are doing your SIP for last 5 years, you want to make these changes. All your investment that has been made over the last 1 year will be gains on those units will be taxable. So maybe stop your investments, wait for those 12 months, wait your last investment to get 12 months older, and then make these changes. And your new investment, the money which you will save from stopping your investments right now, that can start finding its way into the new fund that you have chosen. As and when these get out of that taxation period, short-term capital gains, because of course that is also not much. There is not much of a difference. Earlier it used to be 0 or 10% or 15%. Now the difference is 10% and 15%. You will be liable for 15%, 10% long-term capital gains, and 15% short-term capital gains for your investments which are less than 1 year old. So that is something which you should keep in mind. There could also be an exit load. Normally exit load of 1% is levied on funds which you redeem before 1 year. So you will save also on that. So I would say that wait for that 1 year period. Stop your investments, the ones you have decided not to invest any further. Move your money to and the money which you will save, which is getting invested right now into newer funds. The funds which are more than 1 year old, realize that, the ones which you have to, and consolidate everything into 3-4 funds. That should be good.
How much attention one needs to pay to the SEBI's classification, or should we take this up in some other program?
We will talk about it in great detail and elaborate a full scale. It has, it's a complicated thing. It has brought about many changes, but I would say that it has not simplified investors' life, which we talked about earlier in one of our hangout session. But more importantly, funds will remain true to what they're stating in future, in all times to come, as a result of this. When a fund says that it is going to be a large cap fund, it will always remain a large cap fund. When a fund says that it is going to be a mid cap fund, it will be investing only in mid-sized companies. It will do that always, because that has been taken care of well. It has been defined nicely, and they're supposed to. Otherwise, what used to happen so far is that a fund will start as a multi-cap fund, then at some point will become a large cap fund, then it will become a small cap fund. It will change its track, and we will never be able to figure out.
Okay. So for investor not to get into this trimming exercise, what should one keep in mind when one is building a fund portfolio in a nutshell?
You mean somebody getting started?
Yeah.
If he's thinking afresh, that is pretty straightforward, and that will eliminate the problems of getting into things without a plan. One is that the money which you need immediately or any time in future.
The bucket system that
we said. So just follow that.
Okay.
The money that you need anytime, put it in an ultra short-term bond fund, liquid fund. Money that you need in a couple of years, but definitely need it. Don't take chances with that money. Don't take any chance with that money. Put that money in a short-term debt fund. That's about it. And the money which you are unlikely to need for 5 years and more, investing for the first time, start simply with a balanced fund. 1 or 2 at most. Never invest lump sum. That's the way to go. And make those changes. After 3 years, maybe move to a multi-cap fund. The money that has been accumulated in a balanced fund can also move there. But it's very important for investors to get used to it.
So the mantra is SIPs, balanced fund, and then get into large
multi-cap funds. And the idea for multi-cap fund is primarily that you are getting a full market exposure. Multi-cap funds can invest in large companies, mid-sized companies, small-sized companies, and different segments of the market do well at different points. So you will be doing okay, and fund manager will have all the flexibility.